Okay, good morning, good afternoon. So the topic will be chapter one of the book Chemistry, the Central Science. So it is the introduction or of matter and then measurement. So use this PPT. So via internet, you can get this one by internet. Uh, First is scientific method. What is scientific method? It is a systematic approach to solving problems. So as what we all know, there exists observations, then it exists theories. So, natigitawag na systematic approach, that is what we call the scientific method. So, from the start, which is observation experiments, then uh, you come up with a certain answer hypothesis. So, it will go to the pattern, trends, and then laws. Then from that loss will come up with another solution or solution on your observation, which is the formulation and then how to test the hypothesis. So now, from that hypothesis, it will, after a series of testing, it will then be formulated as theory. So is that the end? No. Ang cycle na siya, no? So from the theory, mabalik sa another observations, experiments to prove the existence of that specific theory. So inana siya ang scientific method. So mag-start siya from your observation and then you create hypothesis, and then from that hypothesis kay maka-create ka og somewhat initial nimo na answer, which is the uh, laws. Then after series of testing of that law, may mo siyang theory. And then another testing na put and retesting to prove the existence of that theory. So for example, it's a fact and theory. So a fact is uh, an event happened on June 30, 1908 in Tunguska, Siberia. An explosion equivalent to about 15 million tons of TNT occurred. So TNT is trinitrotoluene. It's a bomb. It's a explosive. So hypothesis in that time is that a comet or a meteor collided with the Earth. Now the testing, what they did, look for elements and substances characteristic of extraterrestrial objects, elements not found in the area, but such elements, nickel, iridium, were found on that site. However, there is no crater, which is a signal or a sign that there's a meteor collided in the air in the Earth. So the theory is meteor exploded above the ground. It's because there is no crater. Yeah. It's a sample of a scientific method, a process of dealing with science and how you observe and then how to solve. So in chemistry, chemistry is a Chinese name, which means the study of matter and the changes it undergoes. So di ka na siya og kana Chinese na mga characters. So ang chemistry is ano siya, nabuo siya into three state: the solid, liquid, and gas. So we have the other state, but in chemistry we'll deal with solid, liquid, and gas alone. So in this subject, we'll deal with the properties and characteristics for each state. Solid, as you can see in the picture in the presentation, solid, its atom or its micro picture is that the atoms, the bonds of the atoms is compact. It's dool kay siya. For liquids, medyo ano na siya, nice space or gap in between atoms. While the gases has free space wherein they can move freely. So, yan. Mo na siya ang mga unique characteristic for each state. So, a matter, anything that has mass and take up space. So, sa una kay atong na-learn is a matter is anything that has mass only. But right now, we need to know that matter should be anything that has mass and should take up space or ano siya? Anything that has mass and has space. Ano siya? Ang libo pa, no? So anything you can see na ay kabug-aton and then maka-create siya space or occupy siya space is ano siya, it's a matter. So atoms in this chapter will deal with mga words wherein makuha po nato siya for the next chapters. For example, is the atoms. Atoms are the building blocks of matter. So, ang kakompose sa oxygen, it's a matter. Kakompose sa ethanol, it's a matter. Same for water, carbon dioxide, ethylene glycol, and aspirin. So, for oxygen, composed of two atoms of oxygen. This is oxygen molecule of oxygen. So, duwan siya, or elemental oxygen is we have O alone. So, for this one, letter A, this is O2 for the molecule, diatomic gas, oxygen. Then the water composed of one hydrogen and two hydrogen and one oxygen atoms. Yeah. For carbon dioxide, we have C1, then oxygen is we have 2, so on. So it is the building blocks of matter. It's the basic unit. Cell. So each element is made up the same kind of atom. So each element. So for example, si hydrogen ulit siya. Same ano lang siya. For oxygen lang din siya. So it's an element. It's a single entity lang siya. While a compound is made of two or more different kinds of element. So for this one, sila is considered as compounds. It's made of two or more different kinds of elements naman sila. For example, ethanol. So ethanol is you have dua ka carbon, then upat ka oxygen, then isa ka H. Tapos for aspirin, mas daghan na siya, ano na siya. Benzene in iyang ano. So states of matter. So the state of matter is na type process na wherein we can transform that state, that specific state to another state. So for example, for a gas, if you cool the gas or compress, it will become a liquid state na din siya. So from another cooling na po na may tabo, another compression may tabo, mo undergo siya mahimong ang liquid mahimong siya crystalline solid. Same goes to the other side. So if ever si crystalline solid, i-heat mo siya, so ma-liquefy siya, like mo ano siya matunaw. And then liquid, another heating medium mo ikuan, another increase of temperature, mahimo siyang gaseous form. So inanang state of matter, it's a cycle of transformation of different states. So classifications of matter. So from matter, the question is it uniform throughout? So if the answer is yes, then it is a homogeneous matter or a mixture. Now, is it uniform throughout? If the answer is no, then it's heterogeneous mixture. So heterogeneous meaning, ano siya, maklaro nimo ang other properties. So for example is sand and gravel. So it's a heterogeneous mixture. While homogeneous is isa lang siya. So once na example diri ang mud and then ang salt water. So homogeneous salt water, di man yung maklaro na siya, water ang makita but na salt adto. So ano siya. And then heterogeneous ang mud is ma-separate nimo ang kuan, ma-separate nimo ang components sa mud, other components sa mud by physical means. While for homogeneous is ma-separate nimo ang katong components by chemical means. That's the difference of the heterogeneous and the homogeneous mixture. So from endpoint that is heterogeneous, no? But homogeneous, the question is, does it have a variable composition? If the answer is yes, then the homogeneous mixture is a solution. Then, kung ang answer naman is no, then it's a pure substance. For example, water. Sa other side is salt water again. So, yeah, from the pure substance, the question is, can it be separated into simpler substances? If the answer is yes, then it's a compound. If it can be separated, it's an element. So pure na siya. It's the simplest state niya sa isa ka matter. So compound is makaya pa siya. For example, if you want to separate the water, then you can separate the hydrogen and the oxygen component of that water. Okay, mixtures and compounds. So elements kay ano siya, ang atoms, existence niya at single entity. So wala siya yung mixture of other elements. Tapos element and molecule. So molecules of an element. So nana siya na lahit na din siya. Example na din anin niya is, so element siya but a molecule na form. Mo to kung giingon ganina na mention ganina na diatomic form. So there are certain elements that exist as in elemental form but also exist as diatomic. So meaning mga kuan sila, they can be gaseous in form but duwa ilang atoms. So for example is N2 katong ganina is oxygen, ang example, and then chlorine. So chlorine or oxygen, another example. Oxygen can exist as elemental or the atom itself lang oxygen, O. So but it can also exist as molecule ang iyang state. So mo na siyang gitawag na O2. So the O2 usually used in the industries na kuan for combustion. So ano siya? The compound molecules. So mo na siya, lain na siya, compound din siya. When you say compound, it's a mixture of different elements. So element lang is element alone lang. So O lang siya. For compound, si O is sagulan na siya other element. For example, H. So sagulan ito na siya og duha ka H and isa ka O, mayroon siyang water. So it's a compound. It's a mixture of two elements. But if ang mixture of elements and compounds, i-combine na nato siya, it's a mixture. Lahi na po siya na state. So mo na siya ang difference. So properties and changes of matter. So properties of matter. There's a physical property and then a chemical property. From the word itself, physical, walay chemical reaction nito. It's a physical, physical niya na state. Like the color, the texture, size, the volume. So must be observed without changing a compound element into another compound or element. So example for that is boiling point, density, mass, volume, etc. While chemical properties can only be observed when a compound and element is changed into another compound or element. Example for is flammability, and then corrosiveness, and then reactivity with acid, and then etc. So it will need a chemical reaction para makonduct or ma-observe ang property na wala or na game. So intensive property na the intensive property and the extensive. So the difference is that intensive is independent of the amount of the matter that is present. So example for that is density. So independent siya, boiling and then color and then etc. Then while extensive is dependent upon the amount of matter present. For example, is a mass. So you can measure mass without weighing it. You can measure the volume without being the specific length or a specific mass of that certain material. In energy, so that's the difference, the intensive and the extensive property. So we have also physical changes and chemical changes. Same for ganina nakatong physical properties and chemical properties. For this one, maibawa na to ang changes, no? Kung may tabo. So for physical changes, it's the physical lang, walay may tabo na chemical change or composition change sa iya. So changes in matter that do not change the composition of the substance. So changes of state, temperature, volume. So ano na ang din changes of state? So the change naman ang yung physical from solid to liquid. So ikan siya og kanang bato ay kanang sa technique solid na sugar na kuanin siya, natunaw siya into a liquid na sugar. Na change lang yung physical, but it is still sugar. Nahilis lang siya. For chemical changes is changes that result in new substances. For example, combustion. Once you combust or sunugon nimo isa ka material, it will create another compounds. So for example, sunugon nimo ang methane, sunugon nimo ang methane using oxygen, so it's combustion process. Combustion is a process of using O2 to change the component of methane. For example, ano siya? So, mo create din siya og carbon dioxide and then water. So, there are two new substances created after combustion process. One is ang chemical change. So, oxidation, decomposition. So, one ang example of chemical changes. Chemical reaction. So, in the course of chemical reaction, the reacting substances are converted to new substances. So, mo ganina itong mga ano no. So, for example, you have hydrogen gas and then the oxygen gas. So once you burn or mo ano siya, sunugon mo siya, or paano mo siya heat ang katong oxygen and then hydrogen gas, mag-create siya og another molecule or another compound, gitawag na to water. So to form water which is produced in the flame. So mag-mist siya, which is mo ang water component. Ano siya ang chemical reaction. So naay transformation or kanang changes sa initial state or katong reactants na gitawag nato to the product which is the water. So that example nato ni hatag. So compounds can be broken into elements, but elements cannot be broken into simpler packets because that it's the element is the simplest form of atom or matter. So si water kuan pa nato siya, it's a compound of water. So pwede pa nato siya ma-broke down into hydrogen and then oxygen components, but the hydrogen and oxygen di na nato siya ma-cut or di na nato siya ma-divide pa. So relative abundances of elements. So there are researches or studies na they create to get the percent components of different elements in the earth and then in the human body. So for letter A, earth crust, the abundance of oxygen in terms of percent is 49.5. Then the next one is the silicon, 25.7%, then followed by aluminum, which is 7.5, then iron is 4.7, and calcium is 3.4. The other elements are the combination of all other elements not present on the pie graph. So in the human body, the most common element is oxygen, that is 65%. Then we have carbon at 18%, then hydrogen is 10%, and then other elements is 7%. So the top 10 chemicals produced by chemical industry as per 2002, it's an old data, but basically wala na changes ani. So different na ay kung naka-reference siya label siya as acid, bases, and pure elements. So number one is sulfuric acid. So it's an acid used for fertilizers, chemical manufacturing, even mga different industries. So produced at 81 billion of pounds in the year 2002. So the formula for that is H2SO4. So sulfuric acid is a combination of the elements hydrogen, sulfur, and then oxygen. So it's a compound. So nitrogen, it's an element, a molecule-based element. So used for fertilizers. So at number 2 na siya. Going to the sodium hydroxide. So sodium hydroxide is called the most common base used in the laboratory in different reactions. So it's used in aluminum production. Even so, we will encounter sodium hydroxide in the next activities like making or producing soap. We'll produce soap using sodium hydroxide. So natin itawag na separation of mixture. So there are different types and then processes or ways to separate mixture. Number one is filtration. So from the word filter, it separates heterogeneous mixture, the solid substances from the liquid and the solution. So once you have this mixture na naakay solid dito, na kay mga solid particles, and then naakay specific water imong gikuan dito. So i-separate niya ang wala na hilis na mga particles like the solid one sa iyang katong pure ay katong liquid na part. So it's filtration. Mag-filter lang, magsala lang na siya. Number 2 is distillation. As you can see in the setup, mo siyang setup for distillation. Separates homogeneous mixture of liquids on the basis of difference in boiling point. So pinaka-best example ani is to will conduct distillation if we will have time on the separation of essential oil. Essential oil is the most the common ingredient for perfume. So even kanang citrus is na ana siya kanang amount of essential oil na pwede siya ma-extract. So it can separate homogeneous mixture of liquid on the basis of difference in boiling point. So one ay ang process ang boiling point ang distillation atong gamiton for the separation of sa tawag ani essential oil. Okay, essential oil and then water. The oil and water has different boiling point. So mauna magkahilis ay ma-evaporate ang water. It's because taas ay mubo man siya boiling point as compared kay oil. So mas mabilin ang oil. So ano siya? Distillation. Chromatography. So chromatography separates homogeneous mixture on the basis of difference in solubility. Kanisa is solubility as solvent or in the bending to a solid matrix. So you can see that in the picture, ang pag-move sa ink pa na siya, no? So it's mo na siya ang separation technique na chromatography. So there are different ways and types of chromatography. So pinaka-basic is kanin sa paper na tapos ilunod din mo siya sa solvent tapos mo move ang murag mo blot ang katong ang sa tawag ani katong mixture nimo. Tapos dito na dayon siya ma-separate ang katong mixture. So natay gitawag na units measurement. So na siya different history no ang current niya na pamaagi sa pagkuha ning mga quantities or mga measurements niya ni. For example, si mass kilogram. Nanong na siya kilogram, na siya ang pagkuha ni is na siya standard. So based sa System International de Units. So international kanang system of units mo na siya ang kuan mo standardize mo hatag sa unsay sakto na unit ay unsa kay tawag ani unsa ang pag-measure sa specific unit. So for example, si mass na siya kuan natoy isa ka cylinder adto. So pero ga-change siya, it's because ga-change pod ang degrade man ang material. So may possible changes po. So for length is the name of unit is meter and then abbreviation is M. For time is second, S. Temperature is Kelvin, it's the standard K. We have also temperatures Celsius and Fahrenheit. Amount of substance is mole or MOL. Electric current is ampere or A. Then luminous intensity is candela or CD. So that's the SI units we usually use. SI standard units na siya. System International Units. So natin other measurement for mass. But the SI unit for mass is kilogram. So we can also use grams, pounds. So ano siya. So metric system. So prefixes convert the base units into units that are appropriate for the item being measured. So we have prefix, gina-use nato giga, mega, kilo, deci, centi, milli, micro, nano, pico, femto, and the abbreviations, and then the meaning. So from giga is 10 raised to 9, and then down to femto, 10 raised to -15. So it is used on converting specific, for example, kilogram to microgram or kilogram to gigagram. So kana siya ginagamit. So volume is the most commonly used metrics units per volume in liters, no, and then milliliter. So a liter is a cube. A liter is a cube 1 dm, or that is dm nato is decimeter, ay decameter, okay, or a decimeter 10 centimeter long on each side. So mo ni siya ang kanon sa right side no makita ninyo sa picture. A millimeter is a cube of 1 centimeter on each side. So temperature natay ginagamit natay mga temperatures na existing, no. So we have the Kelvin, the Celsius, and then the Fahrenheit. Mo sila ang pinaka basic na ginagamit nato for temperature. No, it is the proportional to the average kinetic energy of the particles in a sample. So that is kinetic energy is equal to 1/2 mv squared. So makita nato nagtulo ka thermometer dira na siya specific temperature ranges. So for SI unit nato na Kelvin, ang specific conversion ana for Celsius is 0, and then for Fahrenheit is 32. While the boiling point, that's the melting point. The boiling point or 100 degrees sa atong pagkabalo for water at Celsius centigrade or Celsius degrees is the conversion is for Kelvin is 373. You just add 273 sa atuang initial Celsius, while sa atuang Fahrenheit is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So natay specific conversion for the normal body temperature also there. So this one is gamiton kay nato siya, no. Usually ginagamit kay nato siya diri sa calculations. Kuha na naraang iyahang conversion or iyahang equation used to be used on conversion. The Fahrenheit scale is not used in scientific measurements, so it's just plainly for conversions solutions lang. So degrees Fahrenheit is equal to, tapos US ra ata usually gamitan. So 9/5 of the degrees Celsius plus 32, while for degrees Celsius is 59F minus 32. That's the equation used for the conversion. So physical property of the substance intensive example is the density. Density is a unit derived from the division or when you divide mass over the volume. So mass is an extensive property. Extensive. And then volume also is an extensive property. Once you divide that one, you'll have the intensive property. So it's a trick. So density of selected substances, ano siyang usually makuha na to. So again, density is mass over volume. Uncertainty in measurement. So we're not 100% sure of our measurements. So natin tawag na uncertainty or error, no, on our measurement. So naikuha nito atong first activity nato which are more accurate. So mo na siya ang ato ang discussion na. So different measuring devices have different uses and different degrees of accuracy or precision. So the difference between accuracy and precision is accurate siya on the specific amount ay atong data na dapat niya i-achieve. For example, if 100 ml ang need na nato na data, dapat doon siya sa 100. That's the accuracy of that specific data. While precision is if daghan kay population or daghan kay data, precision is kung sa kaduol ang each data to each other. It's the precision. So the more accurate ay the more duol ang data sa katong specific. For example, sa 100 ml, and then ang mga data is duol sa 100 ml, so it's accurate and precise. So natay different different laboratory apparatus used, and we have different accuracy and precision. So we have the diluted cylinder, then we have syringe, then we have the burette, and then we have the pipette, and then volumetric flask. So they have different accuracy and precision. So mo na siya atong reason nga no tang naato tong first experiment nato to check if kinsa ang mas accurate or mas precise, if sakto ba ang katong nakabutang na uncertainty sa katong Gradwinckel cylinder or katong sa burette, kaya naman dito plus minus 00 in terms sa error. So small volumes usually ginagamit ang pipette, and for volumetric class is larger volumes of dilution. So na specific niya na use, no? Kung sa imong kuan for ginagmay lang na transfer of liquids, use pipette. Then larger na mga transfer of liquids, use volumetric class. So exact versus inexact numbers. So ano siya man. So 1,000 grams or 1,000 kilograms, ruler or measure inexact. So wrong man na siya. 2.53 centimeter, dapat i-measure siya. Kana siya reading ang iyang kuan, temperature reading, so, etc. So natin gitawag na significant figures. Mata kung i-discuss din sa katong video na to din ang i-post. The term significant figures refers to digits that were measured. So when rounding calculated numbers, we pay attention to significant figures so we do not overstate the precision of our answers. So significant figures na ay rules. Number 1 is all non-zero digits are significant. So from 1 to 9 except 0 that are significant. So for example, 423.444. So these are all non-zero. So these are all significant. So for number 1, 423.444, natay 6 significant figures. Number 2, zeros between two significant figures are themselves significant. So if si 0 na ay kuano kanang na ay apan. So if ever si 0 is na tungaan siya sa duwa ka significant figures, narad ni ang 0, nara ang significant figures ay significant numbers, they can be kuan significant na dayon. For example, there is 42,000 42,300,045. So, ang tulo ka 0 ka in between siya sa significant na mga numbers like 3 and then 4. So, the significant figure for number 2 na first number is 2468. There's 8 significant figures. Now, makakuan ba na variation if ako siya butnyag ka ng point, so mag-decimal siya, no? 42,340.0025. Still, dili siya maka-affect ang decimal basta ang 0 is in between siya sa significant na mga numbers. So still, 8 at 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 ang significant numbers for 42,340.0025. So still, you count the 3 zeros together with the significant numbers. Bahalag na pa'y akwan na tuldok or period. So number 3 rule is zeros at the beginning of a number are never significant. So katong ganina is nasa tunga man, no? Significant man si 0 kung tunga siya sa duwa ka significant. But if ever ang 0 is nasa left side sa number, these are not significant numbers, ang 0. So 0,0042345.0. So the number of significant numbers, the number of significant for that is 6. So 42,345.0 lang. Walay labot ang 3 zeros before the number. Kana na i-block dira na, block na highlight. While the second example is 0.00048 na iupat ka 0 in before 48. So the significant number lang ana is ang 48. So that's 2. Ang kanang nasa left side is the check consider. It's because nasa the left side. Number 4, zeros at the end of a number are significant if the decimal point is written in the number. Okay. So, nasa difference. So, for example, 423,000 walay tuldok. So, ang significant number lang is 3. While versus the 423,000 tuldok, 6 significant figures na sila. So, naay variation dapat on the kama lang siya or naay decimal point. So, for example, 423,000.000. So, you have 9 significant figures for that example. So, significant figures, basic na ano lang. So when you add or subtract numbers, the answer are rounded to the least significant decimal place. So for example, ani is 24.245 plus 22.33488. The answer is 46.57988. The rule, significant ruling for that, significant figure ruling for that is you round the answer to the least significant decimal place. So you have sa katong given nimo, katong 24.245 and then 22.33488. Pinaka-least at the significant number is 5 from 24.245. So you round the answers from 46.57988 to 5 significant figures. So you have 46.580. In multiplication or division, answers are rounded to the number of digits that corresponds to the least number of significant figures in any of the numbers used in the calculation. Now you have 35.8750 times 40.006800. The answer for that is 1435.24395. So for the given, you have 6 significant figure in the first, then you have 8 significant figure in the second. So ang ruling nato for that is you use the least significant numbers. So you have 6. Itong 6 ang gamiton. So you use 1435.24. 6 significant figures. One of pinaka-basic ruling for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Balik na tong accuracy and precision. Accuracy is how close a measurement is to the true value. So for example, kani dire na ay dartboard. So ang aim na to sa dartboard is kaning center. So ang atong data dapat is unsa ka close ang katong darts dito sa tunga, katong dito sa red. It's the aim of the kanang dart na game. So mo na siya accuracy. While precision is how close measurements are to each other. So for example, they are precise. So katong dire sa may duha example dire. I suffer is good accuracy and good precision. It's because the three data is close to the true value, and also they are precise, good precision. It's because duol kay siya ang each other ang tulo ka data. While sa precision is how close measurements are to each other. So na duha example din na poor accuracy, good precision, and then poor accuracy and then poor precision. So ang poor accuracy and good precision, makita nato dira na duol kay ang data to each other, but it's too far from the true value, which is the red spot nato na mo atong gina-aim, which is the true value. So poor yung accuracy, but good in precision. Kay duol na siya with each other. Well, the second one is poor accuracy and poor precision. Layo na gani siya sa ang katong center, which is the true value, kanang red na spot, and also to each other, lagyo kay siya. Di pa siya precise. So, poor na siya, poor in accuracy, poor pag in precision. So, that's the difference. Good. So, lastly, kaning dimensional analysis. Dimensional analysis, mao ni siya ang ginatawag din. Mao ni usually ang ginagamit for engineering. So, we don't usually memorize, we tend to memorize the the units possible na maka-come up with specific answer. So, being nara sa problem answer using the units. So, among gamit ang dimensional analysis. So, di kaya namo siya ginagamit ang ang mga equation kung kabalo mi o convert. So, ang dimensional analysis, ang purpose niya is to convert specific unit to another unit by getting the relationship of that units to other units. Taman ka maka-come up atong gusto nimo or i-derive na measurement. So, for example, ani is convert centimeters to feet. So, kung sa mga relationship nato na maka-come up from centimeter to feet, kabalot na in every 2.54 centimeter na kay 1 inch. And sa isa ka ruler or 12 inches na kay 1 foot. So from that relationship, mag-create a dimensional analysis. So natay kuan dire no kani itong kuan dire ang 1 inch is equal to 2. I-convert man nato ang 1 centimeter. So 1 centimeter atong baseline. So ang atong denominator na dapat nato is centimeter also. para ma-cancel ang numerator and the denominator. So, for every 2.54 centimeter natay 1 inch. So, na ang ato ng numerator is 1 inch na kaya na-cancel lang centimeter. So, 1 inch, mangita na po tag 1 inch, ang aim nato is feet man. So, kabalo tanaw, for every 12 inches natay 1 foot. So, nanatay foot nato na derived nato na unit. So, i-multiply ang tanan numerator and then multiply tanan denominator and then divide numerator to the denominator. That's the answer. And the unit is feet na dayon or foot. Okay, 0.0032 man ang answer dire. So, for every centimeter, there are 0.0032 centimeter. For every centimeter, natay 0.0032 foot. So, inana ang dimension analysis. So, mo ni siyang ginagamit usually sa mga students sa una. Karon, currently sa college. Okay, mas dali siya. So, you get the you know the concept of the problem, the theory behind the problem, and then you kabalo ka og kanang jumble or dula sa mga units para makaderive ka itong certain problem. So dimensional analysis, you need to know what do I need on top, what do I need on the bottom, what do I know, then how do I get there? That's the questions usually you need during the dimensional analysis. So note, you will always be given the conversion factors you need. You don't have to memorize them. Kabalo lang kaning mga basic concept na 2.54 centimeter is 1 inch, and then 12 inches is 1 foot. So dapat kabalo ka ng mga basic, and then imo na din iano din ang relationship between that given dimension or given unit up to relationship niya na maka-come up ka dito sa gusto nimo i-derive na unit. So example sa ani, the speed of light is 2.998 times 10 raised to 10 centimeter per second. What is it? What is it in kilometer per hour? So from centimeter per second, i-convert nato to kilometer per hour. So kabalot na 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters, 1 meter is 100 centimeters, 60 minutes is 1 hour, 60 seconds is 1 minute. So that's the units or unit conversion we need to use para i-convert ang centimeter per second to kilometer per hour. So using the cancellation of numerator denominator, i-ano lang nato siya. So makam up ta to 1.0892 times 10 raised to 9 kilometer per hour using the basic atong conversion sa atong gikuan mga relationship. Same example. Dimension analysis. Yeah, that's it. So that's chapter 1 of our discussion.